The topic is the third International Conference of Alcohol and Harm Reduction held in Cape Town, South Africa in 2006. And we have with us an individual who was a participant in this event in Cape Town, South Africa, Ms. JPerkins. And of course, Ms. Perkins, let me continue our conversation of the last segment, and at the same time to recognize that you do have a number of images from South Africa that you'd like to show us and talk about today. And so let's let you do that from that perspective.
And like, you know, I took the first shot, and I just wanted to say that Cape Town is a city of contradictions. It is probably one of the most extraordinary, beautiful cities I have ever seen. Not that I have traveled that much, but it's just truly pure beauty. And on the other side, I have never seen such poverty and unacceptable living conditions for an individual in the year 2006. So I show that, you know, and then
it's really a city of contrast. Is that what you're saying? That
contrast and contradictions. I mean, the word contradictions is there because, on one hand, if you don't want to see anything, you don't have to.
Okay.
And I had the opportunity of being able to talk to some white South Africans, and they don't know my politics. They don't know where I stand, and they were able to really share some stories. One in particular on the mountain was just amazing. We had stopped for a little pit stop, and there was a group of white South Africans hiking, and we chit-chatted, and once we started talking about HIV and AIDS, they said, oh, our health minister says that AIDS is a joke and that it can be cured by broccoli and beets and lemon juice. And it really filled me up, you know, and I just said, this is not correct, you know, and if there's one thing that I can share with you on this moment is that AIDS is not a joke in your country. And just recently, November 6th, there's a new health minister, which seems to be a step in the right direction in terms of change. And she made that same statement at an international conference in Toronto, maybe about 6 months ago. But these are the messages that people get, and they say, oh, well, this is just a joke.
And this is at the same time when most of us recognize Africa as being one of the leading continents in the world that has been impacted by this disease almost everywhere, and yet and still in Cape Town, South Africa, there's a belief among many of them, people who are in a real sense outside of those individuals who might have some contact with this disease. Is that what we're saying?
That's true. I mean, if you don't want to see it, you don't have to, you know, and the thing that I was able to do is, again, attend this conference. The picture that you're looking at is a group of working with youth, and the man that heads up the YMCA, Llewellyn Sink, their wives don't have gyms or swimming pools, but they have missions where they go out to the prisons. They have a part where they have these kids who don't want to live at home because of the violence, because of the drugs, and they just don't want to be there. They're as old as my grandchildren. They're 8, 9, 10 years old. They're out using glue and drugs and tick, which is our methamphetamine, which is all over the Cape Town, whether it's in the black, colored, or white communities. And they don't even have a handle of what's going on in the colored and black communities because of the fact that news just doesn't get reported. It's left to the local
people with the compounds within those areas
to get the news out. It's not in mainstream. There was a riot that took place in one of the townships, and it wasn't even reported in the media. And you have situations where I was able to, one of the volunteers lived in a township called Valhalla, and the first day we were out, he said to me, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go someplace where tourists don't go. He said, come with me. And we were able to take these taxis. They're not really taxis. They were like vans with 25 people, and we took 4 taxis to get to his place. It took us about an hour and a half. He travels 3 hours every day to volunteer to do this work that he does with the prisons. Now, he was a military person who was a bodyguard, but he was also a gangster and a drug lord working with some of the biggest drug dealers. And he was able to take me around township where he lived for over 30 years. And we walked every street of the blocks. And what happened during that time is you saw families really holding together and working, and I'm hoping that you're viewing the pictures as we're looking at them now, and they're trying to pull their families together. The children go to school. I don't know, the school is not free. They have to pay for their books, their clothing, and somehow they get, the education is most important. Families, you also see pictures of these homeless kids that, again, are 8 and 9 years old. There is no structure. They can either come in or not come into to their drop-in center. You're going to see pictures of women who, I went to a women's clinic where they have pregnant women. They have 90% of the women. I got there at 9 o'clock. There had to be at least 400 women in that compound, and 90% of them are HIV positive. And their babies are positive because they're not getting the medication. I went to a compound where a program called Felber, where they have babies, and that was sad, not only because it was babies, because in this country, pediatric cases are almost unknown because of the medications. There's no medications that are out. And to walk in and see 25 infected babies and toddlers was a sad statement. And yet when you talk to people, oh, people are getting medications. They're not if the babies are being born. And there are volunteers. It's across culture. You have white volunteers. You have black and colored volunteers coming in and helping out.
Do they still use the old apartheid distinctions in Cape Town as well? You know, colored, black, and white?
And it's very, I mean, there was a compound of housing is still very, you know, there are people living in townships, and we passed this one very large development of housing that was empty.
Well, we're going to have to take our second commercial break here, but let me say during this last few seconds here that when we come back, we want you to explain some of these townships and some of the problems that you personally saw while you were there, and leading on later on to this whole idea of perhaps raising the question, what can the world, the international community do? Because it seems that this is a real problem in that there's almost no knowledge in reference to it. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. The topic is the